In our day and age, more and more, it feels as though we've become engrossed inside of a more politically correct landscape. This may have its good and it may have its bad. For instance, it has worked toward acceptance and has tackled various issues like homophobia and misogyny in this day and age. But conversely, it has left artists and creative thinkers walking on eggshells in trying to decide what they can say, what they can't say, what they can write about, and what they can't write about. Scott Moore and I, of course, are writers, and both of us have subject matter that may be deemed offensive to the public at large. The question that one has to ask is what is too offensive and what isn't? What is too taboo, and how should one approach dealing with sensitive subject matter?
Everyone in America, and maybe not just America, I really don't know the general climate of most other countries when it comes to this, but everyone in America is really, I guess, for lack of a better word, pansies. They have so many complaints and so many concerns about what other people are doing. Whether it be two men being together, or whether it be something that is so far out of your own life that you could just take or leave, but you can't, and you have to find that reason to be offended by it. Um, Women groups, feminist groups, they have to find, and I'm talking about the extreme feminists. I'm not talking about women wanting the same equal pay or women wanting, rights. That's definitely something that everybody should be mad about if they're not getting. But I'm talking about those women who find fault in like every little single thing that a man does, and it's like it's all because of every man, and I'm so offended, and I hate everything. And so that kind of stuff it just gets to the point where you're like, oh my god, I don't even know what you can say, can't say. You walk out the door, and all of a sudden, if you are any public figure at all, then you are ostracized from everything. And I mean, there is a point. There is a point. Like when it becomes racist or like
It
misogynist.
muddies the waters in some respects, as there are serious issues that need to be tackled. But just like with everything else in the world, and we tend to not look at it, we think of ourselves all as united in some respect, that we're all the same. But for certain things, there is going to be other people who use your cause for their own ulterior motives, for their own gain. They do it, they make a big deal out of things that perhaps aren't as big of a deal as what they are. And
Yeah. So one of the things I like, on the new Dave Chappelle special, it says right in there that pretty much everybody now is really focused on what they can get other people offended about. And whether it be a joke, I don't like that I can't tell a joke. Like, not all jokes have to be taken to the point where I really mean it as a person. Like, if I sit back and I tell a joke about black people, that doesn't mean I'm racist. I said a joke. It was funny, and now we're moving on. Now, if I say a joke about gay people, that's a joke. I'm having a laugh. I'm hoping that you're laughing with me. If you're not laughing with me, I'll apologize and be like, all right, well maybe that wasn't for you. That's fine, and then we'll move on. We should move on. Like we don't have to become enemies because I'm not against you. I'm all for everybody to be equal and the same. But I made it funny. Like I would make fun of myself. Like I make fun of myself all the time. Like it's not something that doesn't pass a day to where I don't make fun of myself for having like small genitals or something stupid. And I don't really mean any of that. I mean maybe, but I don't mean it, in the general sense. So I think that people like to take meanings from stuff that maybe aren't really there. And I mean, there are some people though who definitely are just plain, for lack of better terms, assholes who do things to get the rise out of people. President Trump.
uh, you mentioned Dave Chappelle, which is interesting because I was immediately thinking of George Carlin and what he said in regards to it. He said that he would make a joke about rape, and he said like people get offended because you can't make jokes about rape. And he said, "That's where you're wrong. I can make jokes about rape whenever I want. Jokes about rape are hilarious." And he's like, "What matters is how the joke is presented. And Dave Chappelle even said like who the target is. Um, at the very end of the day, as long as it's meant in jest, as long as the intention is clear, if it's not like a hateful, like if it's not fueled by
What's your setting?
hatred.
Don't make a rape joke in a recovering rape clinic. I mean, like, that would probably be very insensitive. I would be right there with you going, wow, that is not something you should be doing.
Uh, it's like because the world is too dark and depressing to not at least crack a smile every now and again.
You have to joke, and that's one of the things. You have to joke. But, there are some things that definitely aren't a joke. But you can make a joke out of anything. I've laughed at some pretty grotesque jokes, and I've laughed about death. I've laughed about pretty much everything that you could possibly think of. I won't get into it here, but everything pretty much, and I've laughed. And then I moved on, and I wasn't offended by it. I just moved on. I was like, oh, that was probably pretty grotesque, kind of gross. Probably shouldn't be joking about that, but it was funny, so I'm probably gonna tell my friends the joke.
Which brings me to like on a personal note, is I have people at my workplace, for instance, that will I had one manager in particular of a previous job, and and one of the things that they would do is they would make comments about coworkers. Like they would say things about like having sex with them or grossly inappropriate. I don't want to be in this moment anymore. And like those kinds of things just completely.
Well, that's an
Yeah,
abuse of power.
exactly. It's just like it's an inappropriate thing for the
There's a
workplace.
structure.
Yeah, but and also it brings us to like as I said, you and I are both writers. Has this reflected or in your writing? Because for me, I think we both have the same answer on this. Is no.
My writing is really, really grotesque in a lot of places, and in some places not so much. It just matters what story I'm writing.
Like,
But I curse, I make jokes, I kind of make fun of situations. I have characters who are just horrible people. I mean, that's just who they are. And I know that even books have that. Like, I remember whenever Game of Thrones had the scene where Sansa was raped, and people were like, they shouldn't have depicted that on TV. Now people are going to do it. I don't know, man. I think that people have been doing it for thousands of years, and they didn't need that scene. I think you're going to do it anyways. So there's no reason to be offended by it. It was for entertainment purposes. Is it a good time? No, and they didn't depict it as a good time. They depicted it as a very, very bad time. So I don't think that we should have found offense in it. I think that we should have looked at it for entertainment value. And a lot of people are like, it's not entertaining to be raped. And they didn't really make it entertaining. They made it very, very graphic, and they made it very
like
much
they depicted the ugly parts of the world.
Right.
And like they're telling a story. They're not doing it for your convenience. It's kind of like what George R. Martin said about his characters and how he said that like people think like you shouldn't kill this character off, and the his response to it is like I don't care if it's your favorite. That character is gonna die.
People
That's
die all the time. Every single day, people die, and every single day, probably, and it's sad, and I wish it wouldn't happen, but every day people are probably raped. And it happens in life, so it's going to happen in context of entertainment. You're going to see that. So you shouldn't be offended by these things. I know that there's a bunch of people who are mad that gay people are on TV. Why? There's gay people everywhere. If they're on TV, it doesn't change the fact. It's still going to be, they're going to wake up tomorrow and there's still going to be gay people. You're not going to just be able to sweep them under a rug. So just get used to them being there because it doesn't change who they are as people. It doesn't change who they are as your friend or as a coworker or whatever. And people really get offended by that little small stuff. I mean, there's subset groups, mostly Christians, but other than that, I mean,
there's and something I always think like whenever I have a discussion with someone that like says that they hate gays, they hate them, and like I actually discuss with them what their thoughts are. A lot of the times, what they end up telling me is like they'll break it down and go like, okay, I don't hate gays. I just think what they're doing is gross. And honestly, if they could just leave it at that, I'm like, it's okay if you think it's gross. Really, it really is
I think
okay.
that people picking their nose is gross,
Like
but
it's
people
completely
still do it, and
it
I don't
is,
hate them because of it.
and like it's just like it doesn't affect you. There's a man who love each other and who or a female, two females who love each other. It doesn't concern you. Although and it's okay if you think it's gross. That doesn't necessarily make you homophobic. It just
Think of it as the time where
don't
you walked
yuck their
into
yum.
think of it as the time where you walked into like a restaurant, you seen somebody eating something, and you were like, I wouldn't eat that. That's disgusting. But then you walked on and you forgot about it. And that's how you should do. Like, oh wow, I probably wouldn't be gay. I don't like that inside of me. And then you walk on, you move on. That's it. It doesn't change it. Like, I don't hate that guy because he's eating crab. Like, I'm like, I would never eat crab. I hate crab. It's gross. I hate that guy. No, I'm probably still going to sit across from him and talk to him because him eating crab doesn't change him as a person. And it doesn't change you to be gay. It doesn't change you to be, black, white, Asian, Mexican. That doesn't. And most of the time, you sit down next to a racist person, and they'll be like, "What? Of all the people that you've met that are of a different race, like how many of them been bad?" They're like, "Well, most of them are, most of them are good people." No, like, yeah, you're right. Most of them are good people. Most white people are good people. The rest of us, we're not good people.
It's like you're not describing a race. You're describing how it works with the
describing
world.
humans. You're not describing a race. You're describing everyone. So, like, what you're saying is like your black neighbor family. They're great people, but the people that you see down in Chicago hood, not so much. And that's not racism. Like, you're making it a racist thing because you're a white racist who's been raised in that. But honestly, if you stop back and think about it, you're like, most people are good, instead of just saying most people from a certain race. And then those ones who aren't, like the white meth heads who live in the trailer park, not good people. You probably wouldn't leave your kids with them. You're definitely not going to leave your house unlocked if you know they're next door. So you got to think about it and not be offended by these kinds of certain things. And just let them go and realize that we're all in this together.
And I think that's pretty much where it ends for us, is the idea that although you can make jokes and ingest comments, like eat them, swallow them whole, you can make comments and all that. Those should be taken with a grain of salt. You should be able to laugh at the world. The world's a funny place.
Think of it this way. It's Sesame Street. We're all monsters. We're all different, but we can teach and learn together. Boom.
And that's where we'll leave it. Feel free to leave your comments in the comment section below and subscribe and like the video if you want to support the channel.